everybody. Today I would like to show you how you can do the ceramics part. But first of all, you should have your draft ready with your own pattern that you have draft on the paper. And then later on you will make some strings that penetrate into different holes to create your own pattern ceramics. So now I'm going to show you what tools that we need for this part. So you will need a wooden rolls, and then we will usually have a board that you can put the ceramics and all your working tasks will be doing on this board. And then you have a towel, a sponge, a bowl or a cup of water. Later on we'll use it to clean up, and also you have to add water into the clay. And then you have several different shapes of wooden tools, and they are very useful for you to make different patterns or texture on your own work. And then we also need a knife, so you can cut out the clay into different sizes by this knife. And then the needle, which is very sharp and thin, so you have to use it very carefully. So it usually helps us to make some hole inside your work. And then if you don't have enough clay, usually you can come to me and I can cut out some clay for you if you want to add it on. So now I'm going to show you how we can make some clay strip. That means a long line that you can form your own pattern. So to begin with, you should have a clay like this. It's not that big, but this is already enough for you to use. And then for me, I will just cut it into I will just need a thinner part here. So I would like to remind you one thing. If you have cut the proportion that you need to use, for the rest of them, don't just leave it here, because for clay, it is very important for it to keep it humid and wet. So what you have to do, you have to wet your towel. So in order to make it, there's some water inside. And then afterward, then you can cover it if you are not going to use this part. Okay, so keep it in a humid area. And then you can start to roll the clay. Because we are going to make a long strip, so for what you have to do is, I will use my finger to somehow lengthen the clay a bit. So you can see when I lengthen it, I try to make it even. That means the thickness, they are more or less the same. So sometimes if you found that your clay is a little bit dry, that means you may find there's some cracks. For here, maybe there's some holes or cracks on it. Then you can use your finger tape to get a little bit water, and then you can smooth the clay a bit in order to remove those cracks or holes in it. And afterward, then you can use your palm, and I will use the most meaty part here. Okay, so it will be easier for you to make a smooth line. So and then you can roll the clay on a board. So you can see that I won't just roll in one side. I will keep my hand in different side in order to make my clay even. So when you keep rolling, you can check on the thickness of it. So now it is quite even. And however, I think it takes a bit long for me to make it longer, so I have to use my finger again, somehow to lengthen it again. Check the end, because usually the end it is easily to form cracks. So again, you can use a little bit water and then use your finger to remove those cracks away. So always check the condition of your clay to make sure that it is soft enough, because if it's too hard, you are not possible to roll it into a strip. So sometimes I think most of the boys, because your temperature will be higher than girls, I think most of you, so you can get some water on your palm, just a little bit, to wet your hand a bit when you roll the clay.
Don't make too much of water. You don't need to make it until there's some water to drip in from your hand, but just a little bit wetter in order to keep your clay humid. So you can see that if you keep rolling it in different sides, then it is turned longer and longer. So you have to think about how long do you need for forming your drop.
The proportion of your drop is exactly the real work that you want to make. You can just use the clay and then put it on the top to see whether it is long enough. So for me, it still have a few parts that I need to lengthen it. So guys, you will see that after you have your strip ready, then you have to roll to the size that you want. So for the ending part, just like this one, so if you want to combine them together, then you have to somehow use a little bit water again. Just keep your finger a little bit wet, and then find the part, overlap it a bit, and then try to smooth the intersection part. Actually, it's not that difficult, just like you play the clay when you're young. When you're in kindergarten, maybe you have tried to use clay to do artwork before, and the texture and the technique is more or less the same. However, again, you have to think about whether your strip is even or not. So because of the intersection part here, I found it is a bit thinner than the rest of the part. So if you found that this is not even, so I would suggest you to open your store place here, because there's some clay in a very soft condition, so you can add to the part that you think it need to be thicker. Again, you can use your fingertip to smooth the area in order to merge it perfectly with your original clay. Okay, so after that, you find that the lines, it is even in each side, then you have to do one thing. Because now it is in our strip form, that means it is round. However, the next part, we have to make it a little bit flatter in order to make the pattern or the hole easily. So what you have to do, again, you can use your fingertip to press down a little bit of your clay. So I will use my thumb because for thumb it is bigger and it's more meaty again. So it will be easier for me to press it down. So again, when I press it down, I have to keep a look whether my clay is still in an even thickness. So after you press it down, then you have to check. Can you see that I have found some cracks on the edge of my work? So whenever you see some cracks, try to add some water and smooth it away. So don't let the cracks keep bigger and bigger, because it can ruin your whole work. It will break down your whole work. So don't just check on one side, also flip it to the other side to track it carefully. So after you have pressed down your clay, then the thickness will become, I think that is about 0.5 or 0.3 cm thick, okay, and it will be good enough. So my work here, you can see that it is more complete here. Then I have already flattened the clay, and then afterward you have to refer to your draft. You can see there's some hole because later on you have to put some string and then to combine them into the pattern. So we have to make the hole. For making the hole, you have a needle to help you to do this. So what you have to do is make the hole one by one, and make sure that when you make the hole, you have to make sure that the needle just penetrates through the clay completely. So for here, you don't need a ruler to measure the distance. You have to use your eye to measure it. Okay, so I will just put it approximately one by one accordingly. And I want to remind you, don't just look at one side, flip it to the other side. Then you will find that some of the hole, when you penetrate the needle, the clay just stuck at the hole, or maybe it just fill up half of it. So don't let it happen, because afterward it will be very difficult for you to put a line inside. So what you have to do is to try to remove those clay away, or you just penetrate again on the same hole from the back to the front. Just make sure that both sides, the hole is clear. Okay, so make sure that you check both sides of it to make sure that the hole, they are clear enough to put the string later on. Okay, so when you keep doing it, then you will see that my final work here, the hole is evenly prostrated on the clay. And then the back also, check it again. If those holes is not good enough, for example, I can see those is not good enough, then I have to make the hole again. Okay, so after you have making those holes, then you can make some decoration on it. So as I've mentioned, you have different kinds of tools here. So some are sharp, like a pointy top, and then some are very smooth one, like our small snail. And also there are some cracks on this one. So I found that this is quite useful for making patterns, so I will use this one. So you can see that I can use those tools to press it on the clay. Then you will see you can form the pattern on it. So you will see that for my work, the thickness of the clay, it is not that thick, so I cannot make too much pattern on it, but I can still decorate it with the tools here. So we see that I have made some patterns here. So it is very important for you to flatten the clay a bit in order to, it is easier for you to make the patterns on the top. So after this part, then you have to put your string to penetrate inside the hole to form the pattern like your draft shown. So on the next video, I'm going to show you how to use the string, and also I will show you how to clean up all the stuff after your work.